or television, whether it be on the air or behind the scenes, many Granite State stations are looking for motivated people just like you. Visit our online job bank at nhab.org to view current job openings and even post your resume for potential employers. You can also access a list of upcoming job fairs in New Hampshire as well as NHAB-sponsored events. Students, if you're studying over-the-air broadcasting, apply for the NHAB Student Broadcaster Scholarship and learn about available internships at local stations. It's easy to navigate, full of useful resources, and it's only a click away. NHAB.org, the online source of Granite State Broadcasting.
With video games, I always check the rating and content descriptors on the package. But there are times when I'd like more detail about what's in the game. That's why I love these new rating summaries. They provide an in-depth description of a game's content to help me decide if it's okay for my kids to play. Rating summaries are free and available on my smartphone or at home online.
For more information about video game ratings and rating summaries, go to esrb.org.
ESPN Radio and New Hampshire's best sports. This is WGAM, The Game.
Welcome back to the New England Golf Radio Show. I am JJ Truman. I got Chris Arcan behind the board coming up with beat after beat. Do people out there know you used to be a DJ and that's how you get beats like this?
Fresh beats on Sunday morning.
Fresh beats on Sunday morning by Chris Arcan. That would be a new show. Maybe we could make a play for that.
Sure. This isn't. I didn't write this song. That was a Sublime song.
Well, don't tell anybody, man. They might not know that. We are back, New England Golf Radio Show. As I said, JJ Truman here, Chris Arcan behind the board. We are going to provide you with the British Open preview right now, the third major of the year. This one always gets me really excited because it's a different style of golf. It's a different type of golf that needs to be played over there. To win this tournament always brings out some serious frustration out of golfers over there, especially if the weather is a factor, if it's windy, if it's raining. Guys are just upset. They're upset. And even if there isn't weather, there's a lot of times when guys hit good shots and they get a couple bounces, a couple rolls that they don't really like and they can't control that they don't like. So I don't know if I'd call it the tournament of frustration, but you can certainly see the frustration on their faces when they're playing in this. And it's different. It puts guys in a different mindset. And it's just everything about it is completely different. And I like that because of it. And that brings me to the question. Now, a lot of people call it the British Open, and that's typically, I think, what I refer to it as, or I have been at least throughout the show. But other people like to call it the Open Championship. And I think it's more people from Europe that, and I don't want to generalize, but I think typically people from Europe consider it the Open Championship. And some people say, oh, no, it's not the Open Championship because the U.S. Open is the Open Championship. So, Chris, what do you think? Is the British Open the Open Championship? It is the oldest Open in golf. Or is it simply the British Open?
I thought it was more a thing like in China, Chinese food is just food. In England, the British Open is just the Open.
That's a great point. Maybe that's what it is.
In the United States, the U.S. Open is just the Open. I think it's just one of those things. But that's just my opinion. I have no idea.
So what are you going with? You're going with the British Open here and the Open Championship if you're
right now we are in New Hampshire, which is in the United States of America, and de facto that makes it the British Open.
De facto, I like that. The British Open. Okay, well, I want to get that established before we went any further. So we have to officially refer to this thing as the British Open throughout the rest of the show. If I call it the Open Championship, please stop me and tell me, hey, no, it's the British Open. And I think that's what I've been calling it throughout the show. If you want to weigh in on this British Open, certainly feel free to call us 883-9900 for tickets to the LPGA Futures Tour at Beaver Meadow in Concord later this month. Professionals hitting golf shots there. As I said, 883-9900. We'd love to hear from you. Get those tickets. Let us know what you think. British Open or Open Championship. It's going to be played at Royal St. George's Golf Club this year, which is in Sandwich, Kent, England, which if you say that 3 times fast, it sounds sort of strange, but Sandwich, Kent, England is where it's located. Defending champion Louis Oosthuizen, who actually played this week at the John Deere, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later. It's a par 70 course, 7,200 yards. Not a super long golf course, but they have to be careful on how far they want to lengthen this thing out because of the weather. If the wind starts blowing out there, the thing could be 7,200 yards, but play like 8,200. So they're very careful about where they position the tees and how long they actually make the course. As I said, completely different format. Fairways roll out. A lot of pop bunkers. You'll see those really, really deep. Some of them 6-7 feet deep. You hit your ball in one of those, those in the fairway, and certainly you're going to hear some words, or you won't hear them, but you'll imagine the words that would be coming out of the pro's mouth as they hit it in there. So definitely a different type of golf that they play over there. Some of the interesting holes you should watch out for next week: 14th, 574-yard par 5. A lot of out of bounds in this hole. Certainly a place where you can go for it in 2, but going to require a really, really good second shot. But if you hit a really good second shot, you can be rewarded with an eagle. Also got to be aware of a big vault there, or a big burn that you can hit the ball into on your drive. Out there about 330, some of the pros will be hitting it out there. Now, if the wind's blowing back in their face, probably not a factor, but an interesting hole to watch because it's a decision-making hole for these guys. Are they going to try to go for it in 2, or are they going to take the easy route and lay up and try to make their birdie the hard way? Another one following the 14th is the 15th, 496-yard par 4. Some consider this the hardest hole in all of Europe, which is certainly interesting to watch the best players in the world play. Definitely, no doubt about that. 496 yards. Now, I don't know. There's a lot of amateurs out there that couldn't get home 496 yards in 2 shots. Maybe not even in 3 for some people. So think about how long that is. You got to hit a good drive, obviously. The drive is the key. You hit a good drive out there about 300. There's a bunch of fairway bunkers that are pot bunkers out there, 5-6 feet deep, very, very difficult to get out of. Basically, you're required to hit it out with a wedge if you hit it in one of those, if you can even get it out of there in a wedge. And then a green that's relatively small, but there's 3 bunkers that line up across the front of it. So if you come up short, or if the wind gets your ball in any sort of fashion, you're in one of those bunkers. Green's got a lot of undulation to it as well. So the 15th, 496-yard par 4, definitely a fun one to watch. Then the players move on to the 16th. They get a little break, 163-yard par 3. Gives them an opportunity to maybe make up a stroke that they lost in the 15th if they made bogey or double bogey there. Certainly a hole that guys will make birdie on and will have an impact on how the Open Championship plays out. I just said it. It should be British Open. How the British Open plays out. These guys will be going at these pins if they need to, or playing it safe. Green's got a lot of undulation. So those are good stretch of holes there that will challenge the guys, 14, 15, 16, and certainly watch out for those next week. They'll definitely have coverage of those on ESPN and also online. I think they're going to have a little coverage of those 3 holes. So definitely interesting.
Do you prefer a hole that's really hard or a hole that's really easy if you're watching the tournament, or if you're playing? Obviously
I would go with the more challenging holes. I tend, when I play, to relax a little bit on the easier holes, which ends up not being so good, and then making some big numbers on holes that you shouldn't. And also, I love to see these guys tested, especially in the British Open. I want to see them tested. I will love to watch these guys be frustrated and have to test their game and their swing and their short game and all those things that'll be tested over there. So I definitely want to see the hardest setup I can possibly see when these guys play. Speaking of the test, who's up to the test, I guess, is the question here. There's a ton of guys, I think, that are in the mix to win this thing. First, let's start with Rory McIlroy. Dominated the U.S. Open, took 3 weeks off, as we talked about, to get his game ready for this. Criticized by a lot of people. Colin Montgomery criticized him. A lot of media criticized him for taking this time off. And quite frankly, I'm not sure where I'm at with this one. I don't think it's going to affect him. I think it was good for him to take this time off and get his game ready. You got to hit different shots over there. As I said, you got to keep the ball low. He's generally hits it really high. You got to learn how to play some of the bounces and bumps in link style. And he's from Northern Ireland, so he's got an idea on how to do that. But to get his game adjusted back to that coming from Congressional, I think it was a good idea. Chris, what do you think? Good idea, 3 weeks off, 3 weeks on? No, yes.
Hard to say, really, but we've seen Rory McIlroy be very mentally fragile before, and I think to have him end, not end really, but to end the U.S. Open on such a high note and then not play again until the British Open, mentally for him, he's still riding that wave. You know what I mean? So if that's for his mental makeup, if that's something that's going to be beneficial to him, by all means, take as much time off as you want. We'll see if he gets rusty from the time. I don't think he will.
I don't think he will either. A lot of people say tournament golf is so much different. These guys have been playing tournaments since they were 3 years old. It doesn't matter. Golf is golf to them, I think, for the most part. Certainly, if he gets himself in a pressure situation, yeah, things might change. He wasn't really in a lot of pressure situations at the U.S. Open, right? He basically dominated it. I mean, he was on cruise control. So be interesting to see how he performs. And if he performs well, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I think he'll finish top 5. How he responds to that pressure situation if guys are lurking around him and score, whereas the U.S. Open a little bit different. He pretty much had that thing under control and was on cruise control for the final 2 rounds at least there. Another guy we have to talk about, the American that everybody wants to talk about, Phil Mickelson, really struggles with Link Styles Golf. He's playing in the Scottish Open this week. One of his major sponsors, the Barclays, sponsors that tournament, so that makes sense for him to be there. Also, a chance for him to tune his game up there. Not really playing well, did make the cut, and they're going to shorten that tournament to 54 holes. So just an opportunity for him to get a little tune-up. Not sure where he fits into this, but my instincts tell me Phil will not be in the mix because he hasn't in the past however many years, is not contended in one of these, just hits the ball too high and too all over the place for a British Open style. Chris, what do you think about Phil's chances to contend?
I feel like Phil hasn't done much at all lately. I mean, we hardly ever even mention his name anymore. And this could be a real, I don't want to say a real step down for him, but it could be, if he's on TV really shanking him, this could be bad for Phil.
Step backwards for Phil.
You know what I mean?
And I think Phil, as I said, won't be in contention. I'd love to see him get back into contention, having said that. I don't think he will. I'd love to see him. Phil, I hope you're getting things worked out, learning how to hit that low draw and low cut and all those things over there. Hopefully you can get that worked out. Another guy we got to talk about, Graham McDowell, last year's U.S. Open Championship winner, a guy that's familiar with Link Style Golf, who's playing in the Scottish Open, which is going on right now. They're playing that third round right now. Was tied for the lead. Not really sure where he's at, but seems to be playing some good golf, confident with his swing. Certainly a guy who can contend, handles the pressure. And if he's putting it well, watch out for this guy because he can make putts when the pressure is on. Chris, what do you think about G-Mac's chances?
I think G-Mac is someone who that no one really has been talking about, at all. It's almost weird to even be discussing him with how little coverage he's been getting lately.
Did have that final round lead and blew it and shot that 81, and certainly people were talking about them, and he said, I kind of wasn't, not that I wasn't into it, but I was worn out. I've been doing too much media, ever since the U.S. Open Championship. I know there's a lot of attention that you get when you win a U.S. Open Championship that you don't typically get, so that certainly had an impact. I like his chances to compete this week. I think he'll be in the mix for sure, especially seeing him play some good golf on TV right now, actually, as we speak, over there in the Scottish Open. The defending champion, Louis Oosthuizen, nicknamed Shrek. You like that nickname?
Sure.
Shrek?
Why not?
Kind of, I guess, I don't know where he got it from. Kind of looks like him. A guy that's a farmer, last year's champion, has an unbelievably sound swing. If you break down his swing in slow motion, or if you get anybody if you go on YouTube and look up his swing and watch that thing in slow motion, the fundamentals there are unbelievable. I mean, he just strikes it pure. He did play in the John Deere this week, didn't make the cut. He's a farmer, loves John Deere's tractors. I think he went over there just to support him because he loves them so much. Maybe to buy a few tractors. I don't even know. Probably, what do you think, intentionally missed the cut this week so he could hop on that plane a little bit early? He's got to be back over there by now.
I don't know. It's in golf, I don't think anyone ever tries to, punch out early.
Yeah.
You don't want to go into a big tournament like this on a cold streak. Although I'll say this, I like anybody whose last name starts with 2 consecutive vowels.
There you go. There you go. As I said, didn't make the cut, so got a chance to get over there. Hopefully gets rested, gets over that jet lag. I'm not sure if these guys even have jet lag anymore because they fly and travel so much. But he's a guy I think that could be in the mix just because of the way he strikes the ball. It's just unbelievable to watch him. If he gets his short game rolling, he can certainly be a factor. Ross Fisher, a guy that we never talk about on this program, and a guy that a lot of American media did not cover. He's an excellent European Tour player. He did finish 15th at the Masters. He's a guy that European people and European media, I should say, are saying could get in the mix for this thing. I'm not so sure I think Ross Fisher can get in the mix. Hasn't won in the U.S., hasn't shown much as far as major championships go, although he did finish 15th at the Masters, so maybe he's starting to be more comfortable in those type of situations. Just not somebody I think that could get in the mix. Chris, anything on Ross Fisher?
Ross Fisher's won 4 small European tournaments: the KLM, the Euro Open, the Volvo World Match Play Championship, and the 3 Irish Open. It's not like he's never won anything, and he won an amateur championship, I think, in 2003.
Yes, he did.
So it's not like he's not that young anymore. He's 30 years old, and he isn't somebody that we've talked about a lot. Like we've said, we've mostly, I feel like, except for McIlroy, stayed with American players, but he's definitely a name that could certainly go out and have 1 or 2 really good rounds and stay right in contention the whole weekend.
He certainly has the game. Not sure if he's got the mental aspect.
We'll see.
Here is the guy that everybody is talking about, and surprisingly to me, everybody is picking this guy to be the winner or sort of the favorite, even though Las Vegas has Rory McIlroy as the favorite, which would be the clear-cut favorite to me.
But that's just for who they're going to bet on. That's not really who they think is going to win,
Well, it has to be who
McIlroy. No, that's not how Vegas does it. They do it. They put the odds out there to get people to bet on him, not because they think, McIlroy's definitely going to win.
They think that they will lose the most money if he wins because the most people will bet on him.
Yeah,
we can get into a Vegas tutorial later. Lee Westwood, this is the guy everybody's picking as far as the media goes. Everybody's saying he's the favorite. We haven't heard from him a while. He's playing this week in the Scottish Open. Is not playing his best golf. I think he's in the top 25 right now, or was last time I checked during the last break. So he's not playing his best golf right now, but a guy that was world number one, certainly can deal with the pressure, hasn't won a major. That's his tag. Hasn't won a major. World number one, hasn't won a major. Luke Donald, who's the current world number one, hasn't won a major either. But Lee, a guy who's got the game, no question. Is it a mental thing holding him back? Something mental keeping him from winning one of these majors?
I'm not sure. It's I have to say no, because you don't become the number one player in the world if you have a big mental problem. You know, you have to be good enough to do that. And he is. He's just, I almost have to think it's like a crappy coincidence for him, that he hasn't seemed to put it together to
He's
win
a victim of circumstances, maybe. I don't know. I think he'll be in contention this week. He's not the favorite to me. Rory McIlroy is the clear favorite to me. I don't understand how people would pick Lee Westwood.
What about Luke?
We'll talk about Luke.
Okay, sorry. I thought you just
world number one, playing in the Scottish Open this week, and just had the lead, was tied for the lead just recently, playing some great golf, strikes it pure. I just don't know how well he can play in the wind. If the conditions are calm and not rainy, Luke Donald's a factor, hands down, no question. If the weather is a factor, he struggles with the wind because he's just not long enough to hit drives out there and hit his irons as far as the other guys can. So the wind really impacts Luke Donald's game. I think if it's calm there, Luke contends. Definitely in the top 10 if it's calm. If it's windy, rainy, who knows with Luke. Really like his game, though, putting it well and driving it well right now. So we'll see where he fits in, but like I said, I think weather is a huge factor for him. Paul Casey, another Englishman who's kind of fallen off the map. He was all the rage about a year and a half ago. Everybody talked about how good his game was, got hurt, had some injuries. Nobody's really talked about him. I think he's a guy, even though not playing well, if he has a good week, can contend. Another English guy.
Wait, wasn't he the guy who said he hates America? Wasn't that Paul Casey when they were in the Ryder Cup? I think he did. I think he said, I hate those Americans or something like that, and he got in trouble.
That would be shocking to hear from Paul Casey. Really kind of a quiet, reserved guy. Seems like a really easygoing guy.
I might be thinking of somebody else.
Plays a ton over here in America. I would be shocked to hear that. Maybe the case, though. Not sure. Ian Poulter, a guy I love to watch play. I saw him down in Connecticut a couple weeks ago. He's really fun to watch. He's definitely a guy who can contend this week because of his mental toughness and his attitude. He's edgy. I like him. I think he's a guy that'll be in the mix for sure. Now, Jason Day, a young guy, finished second in the last two majors. He's a guy we've talked about a lot on this program as a young gun who can compete in majors. Obviously, he's coming second. Do you think he's a factor this week? Is it his time to win? Does he have a chance to win?
I think he has a chance, probably not to win, but to definitely make a big impact on the tournament and have a lot of people remember his name, because I think he's definitely a talented enough and a good enough second ball hitter to really excel on this course. And I don't think he's going to win anything, but I think people are going to remember his performance.
I think he'll be in the mix as well. He's an Australian kid who's certainly familiar with playing in conditions, and he's got to be somewhat familiar with link-style golf. It's a little bit different in Australia, but definitely used to the wind. So watch out for him. Last guy, Sergio Garcia, rejuvenated. Can he contend?
I hope not. I don't want to watch Sergio.
Chris doesn't want to see Sergio. You know what? I would like to see Sergio in the mix, and I would like to see him stay in the same mental state. If Sergio turns back into that guy that starts blaming the greens and blaming the grass and all sorts of things, I don't want to see him in the mix. If he stays easygoing Sergio that we've seen over the last month or two, fine with me. Let's put him in the mix. So we've gone through a bunch of guys. There's a ton of guys out there that you need to watch, need to pay attention to. I think this thing is wide open. There's a lot of guys that can win it. Who are you taking to win, Chris? Out of all those guys, or maybe you go somebody off the board we didn't really talk about. You can go Tom Watson. We didn't talk about him. He contended a while ago. What do you think?
I think I'm going to go with Luke. Luke Donald's going to do it. That's what I'm saying.
Taking the world number one, he's going to go with Luke Donald. I am going to go with Graham McDowell, last year's U.S. Open winner. I think he's playing well. He looks to be in a good state of mind. He's putting it well. So definitely I think he's got a chance, and I'm going to go with him. You've got Luke, world number one. Another nice pick. Just pray for good weather. That's all I'm going to say. Coming up next, we're going to have a New Hampshire Amateur preview. As I said, I got over to Nashua Country Club, had a chance to play the course. We're going to have John Jelly, the tournament director, on the phone. We'll talk a little bit about the format, the setup, and all those good things. Going to be an exciting week. We're going to provide updates on the Amateur all week long right here on WGAM. So we're certainly going to have your coverage here, and you can get it online as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that right here on WGAM.